I'm Will Aubrey, and it's time for another edition of the Improbability Engine. Alongside me, my buddy Joe Darnell. And Joe, what's your moment of what this week?
You know, I'm going to let you go first. Go ahead and go first. I want to hear what you've got on
It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen happen on a basketball court.
Okay.
Russell Westbrook. Now, if I tell you that he traveled, you'll think, he took an extra step or two.
Mm-hmm.
No, he took the inbounds pass, and, players will frequently, they'll take the inbounds pass, they'll put it on their hip, they'll start to go and start dribbling.
Yeah.
But he took at least 4 steps before he put the ball on the floor for the first time. It's like he just forgot that he had to dribble. I'm sorry, forgot the rules here.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me, and mine comes from the NBA as well, which is funny because you look at these guys and you're dealing with guys at the peak of performance in their field. And when you look at Russell Westbrook, he's arguably the best player in the league right now.
Arguably.
He's had
averaging a triple-double.
Absolutely, and doing it every night. It's not like he's had a couple really big nights that have pushed his numbers high and he's got some other nights where he's not great. He is doing it every single night for Oklahoma City. I looked at it from a different angle. I looked at Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 6'11 Greek forward for the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Greek Freak.
The Greek Freak. And he really is. I mean, he's got a 7'5" wingspan. He can dribble the ball. He can shoot. He can do all this stuff. I really think he'll be the next superstar in the NBA if he isn't there already. He is a fantastic basketball player, but his coach is Jason Kidd. Now, there was some friction early on between Jason Kidd and Giannis Antetokounmpo. These things happen, young player, new coach. In the NBA, oftentimes the coach loses in those situations. Usually. Giannis Antetokounmpo did something pretty smart, though. He decided, well, who's this guy telling me what I need to do, what I need to know? Who is this guy? And he looked up his career statistics and saw that Jason Kidd's a future Hall of Famer. He was arguably the best point guard in the league for at least a few years of his career, and arguably in the top 3 the rest of his career. Absolute fantastic player. To which point, Antetokounmpo, in his own defense, decided, I better shut up. This guy knows what he's talking about. So, mark one up for some, what? You didn't know who Jason Kidd was? But, yeah.
And let me give you this. I guess it just, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm old.
Mm-hmm. Probably so.
Maybe it's because I'm good looking.
Nah.
There's a guy averaging 28 points a game in the NBA this year who is getting some mention, albeit obscurely, some mention for most valuable player that I had barely heard of. You know who I'm talking about? 28.4 points a game. Any idea who he is?
No.
Plays for the Boston Celtics.
No.
Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas, yeah. He's having a good year.
But who would have... I mean, if you had mentioned him to me, I would have said, yeah, I think there's somebody that... Yeah, I mean, it's not... Obviously, it's not the guy that's the Hall of Famer, but I think there's somebody with that same name playing somewhere. I would have guessed, he's averaging 14 or 15 points a game. 28 points a game. How has he completely escaped everyone's notice?
Well, first and foremost, because he's not Russell Westbrook, he's not Kevin Durant, he's not LeBron James.
Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player ever.
See, there you go. You get guys who have name cachet. They're going to hold on to this.
That's why that escaped everyone's mind.
So there you go. I mean, part of that's just, you don't hear about those guys all that often. You don't hear about the other guy, and that second tier player, no matter how good they are, oftentimes gets overlooked.
He's clearly not a second tier player this year. But the other thing is, think about this for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The Boston Celtics, they're no longer a spotlight team.
Nope.
I mean, if you think about it, you say, well, if he were playing here, if he were playing there,
right.
people would have noticed.
Golden State is and Boston isn't.
Yeah.
Let that one wash over you. All you fans of the basketball in the 80s, Golden State is and the Celtics aren't. And I think that's part of the issue that the Boston Celtics have had in their rebuilding from the fall at post Larry Bird, where they tried to rebuild, and they had so much trouble doing it, and they had guys like Antoine Walker, and they had guys who were good players but just weren't good enough to take them to that next level. I think they're an exciting team now because they've got really great coaching. Their head coach is the guy who used to be at Butler. He's a fantastic basketball coach. The guy knows the game. He is a bright basketball mind. Brad Stevens is that guy. And you've got to have a guy that can do that, who doesn't come in with a lot of ego, but can stand his own in a group, and then give some credit to the rest of the team. He's built a team in Boston that is a bunch of guys Isaiah Thomas is a great example. A guy you don't ever think about as being a top-tier player, but they've got a lot of depth and a lot of talent in their roster, and he plays them really well. It's strange. It's the Butler of the NBA. I mean, they're a bunch of guys you look at and you go, yeah, I think I've heard that name before. Yeah, they're all right. They just come up and play really well, and hopefully that's something he can build on. I'd like to see Boston come back. I think it's better with Boston being good. The NBA is.
Moving along to Murray State basketball, the Racers are 5-2. They're in first place in the West.
Yep.
And from the beginning of the year, they've had a couple of question marks. One, who's going to be the low post scoring threat?
Yep.
And two, who's the two guard?
Right.
I think those questions have been answered.
At least as best as the roster can do it.
As best as the roster can do it. Now, Bryce Jones has developed into a reliable catch and shoot guy on the wing.
Yeah.
Now, he's not really big enough to be a two guard.
Right.
But he can catch it and he can shoot it and he can make threes.
Right.
And Terrell Miller has spent more time in the low post of late.
Right.
And, he's developed into a scoring threat down there. Interesting statistic.
Mm-hmm.
Murray State shoots 10 percentage points higher from three when Terrell Miller takes at least 7 twos.
That makes perfect sense to me. It really does. I mean, everybody wants to look at this team and say, well, they shoot too many threes, they shoot too many threes, they shoot too many threes. I think they have to settle for threes when Terrell Miller's not shooting the ball down low for whatever reason. Now, that could mean that, an effective defense in the post against him, which has been the case a couple times this year. There have been some guys where, they just were really good down in the post. Foul trouble, which has happened, I know it happened on Saturday against Austin Peay, where you get him in foul trouble early and you just can't keep him on the floor. I mean, he just doesn't play enough minutes to be as effective as you need him to be. And that forces you to compensate by playing a more perimeter-oriented offense. Now, if you're hitting shots, you can win some games like that. And a guy like John Starks, 9 times out of 10, he's going to hit a lot of those threes. He's going to score a lot of points. And there are guys on the perimeter that can. But it makes it a one-sided team automatically. You're only one-dimensional, you're easier to stop, and your percentages go down. It makes perfect sense to me.
Well, then there's the other aspect of it. Unfortunately, they don't have anybody else at that spot. I mean, if Jones gets in foul trouble, he and Stark have to rest occasionally. Who do you bring in?
Right.
And you don't really have anybody that's
right.
reliable that you can bring in.
Well, and you're seeing the fragility of the actual roster that's here now. They've got some guys who are really good, and they've got some guys who are going to turn into some really good basketball players. I believe that. But you're right; they just don't have the depth of the roster to really, I think, challenge at the top of the conference. And what makes that worse is that the talent they do have is pretty young. And young talent is really inconsistent. It's wildly inconsistent. And it's just a fact of the matter. I mean, you've got a bunch of bigs down low who I think they could absolutely be very good and have very powerful and impactful careers at Murray State University. But you don't judge a big in his first year. You just don't. Those guys don't walk through the door very often. The OVC is and has always been a guard-oriented league. There have been some aberrations. There have been other people who've done well and been post players, guys like Popeye Jones, who were the exception. Kenneth Fareed, an exception.
Jim McDaniels.
You look at those guys and you go, okay, yeah, those are really good post players. But most of the time, it's Marcus Browns and Vincent Rainey's. It's Don Mann and Jeff Martins. Now, Jeff Martin was 6'8", but he was absolutely a perimeter player.
Absolutely.
You get some of those guys, Terry Mays and Chad Townsend, who also played with Vincent Rainey. So that's 3 really good guards. It's no wonder that team was good. Even if you go into more recent times with Isaiah Cannon, B.J. Jenkins, you just look at those guys and you go, okay, I get it. Now that's how you have to build your team. But you've got to have multiples of those guys. There's been hope that certain guys would step up and play better than they have, but coming up to Division I is not a surefire thing. It's a difficult transition for every player, with maybe the exceptions of guys like, Durant, who played a year at Texas, or some of those guys who are head and shoulders better than the rest of the people in their class. For a lot of these guys, you're just packing in a lot of change. You're changing their lifestyle. You're changing their support system. You're changing their schedules. You're changing all of the things that they've relied on for their entire lives. And it's no wonder that they have trouble with it. So I think the biggest issue that's facing this team is one that we really can't force. You can't force growth. You can't force maturity, and you can't force consistency. Those are things that are absolutely, they're incumbent upon the players themselves. But the big thing to remember here, Will, is you can't get too high or too low on this team. They are what they are. Now, is there talent? You bet your boots there's talent. I just don't know what's going to happen any game.
They're kind of like the little girl in the nursery rhyme. When they're good, they're very, very good. Mm-hmm. When they're bad, they're horrid.
Yeah.
If you look at them when they've been good, they beat Illinois State. Absolutely. Illinois State is 16-4, ranked in the top 50 in the Massey ratings. They almost beat Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is 17-3, ranked in the top 50 in the Massey ratings. On the other hand, you look at Evansville, they lose by 32 at Evansville. Evansville is a losing record. Yeah. They lose by 15 at home to Wright State. The very next game, Wright State was blown out by Oakland. Yeah. So, and Coach McMahon has said this himself, they need to find some consistency. Yeah. Now, they've been more consistent of late. They've won 6 of their last 8 games. Right. So, credit where credit is due, and they've played much better since the regular season has started. You give them credit for that. We just have to see how things develop here over the next month. And they have the talent, if everything goes their way, to make a run, win the conference championship, go to the NCAA tournament. And when you've got a scorer, when you have 2 scorers like Terrell Miller and Jonathan Stark, you've got the ability to win a game in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest issue that I see with this team is not a talent-wise. You've just got to develop the maturity to take that next step. That's going to be what has to happen. You look at Terrell Miller. The team cannot function at its highest level with Terrell Miller on the bench. There's just nobody else who can do what he does on this team. Not at this point. He's got to be on the floor. And so part of that is he needs to take it upon himself. Hey, look, sometimes I'm just going to have to not play press defense. I'm not going to have to get up on a guy and challenge a shot that I would normally love to challenge. And that's a difficult thing to do. But now look at what he's done so far. When he first came in, he fancied himself a stretch 4. And he is. But he took a lot of threes and wouldn't score down in the post. Well, we see how good of a post player he is whenever he decides to do it. So he'll get down in the post now and he'll score points. So the next step in his development will be to play defense without fouling, which is difficult to do in the OVC, quite honestly, for whatever reason.
Anything else on the Racers?
Big week coming up. The next 2 games they will determine a lot, as in how the standings are in the OVC West. I think that's going to be a major impactful thing. You got to win these games. If you win these games, you're in a much better situation. Things are going to be all right. It's going to kind of settle itself back out. If you split, things get dicey, and God forbid you go 0-2 and it gets real tight real fast, and now all of a sudden you're playing from a deficit. And I don't know if there's enough depth on this team to win 3 games in the OVC tournament.
Okay. Moving along, we've got Calloway County basketball. First, the Calloway girls. They're on a monster roll, 18-3, I think, overall.
Absolutely.
They got a signature victory at home against Graves County on Friday, and that was a game that nobody expected them to win. Charlie Settle came out. She hit 3 threes early. She wound up with 25 points in that game. She's just a freshman. They got good supporting performances from a number of players, as Alicia Hornbuckle, Megan Greer, Jenny Spann, all contributed. I think they all scored in double figures. Not 100% sure about that. But anyway, and they came out and kind of smacked Graves in the mouth at the very beginning, and they were close to blowing them out.
Absolutely.
Because they got out to a 9-point lead, despite the fact that Alicia was cold from the outside.
Right.
If Alicia knocks down 2 or 3 of those 3-pointers that she took early, suddenly it's a 15, 18-point lead, right. and at that point, it's clear sailing. So,
which every Laker likes that.
Right. Now, last night they had to play without Charlie.
Right.
They played Paducah Tillman. They still won by 25 points.
And Tillman's not a great matchup a lot of times. I mean, they'll have some talent and some speed. I think they're a little down this year, but still a difficult team to match up with in the region because you never know what they're going to bring to you.
Want to drink, guys? Are you all good?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Tillman's a really difficult team to figure. I mean, you look at it. On the one hand, they beat Hickman County 62-29.
Right.
On the other hand, Marshall beat them 72-11.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand that. Now, I do know that they've had problems with kids being hurt,
yes.
problems with kids quitting,
yeah.
And so I suspect that some of their results are distorted by that, and that, in some of those games, they just didn't have some of their best players available.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing that makes any sense to me, because the team that I saw last night would not lose by 61 points to Marshall County.
Right.
Now, they might lose by 40, but they wouldn't
right.
play a whole game and just score 11 points.
Well, it's an order of magnitude difference, really. When you're talking about high school basketball, there are teams that, there's no shot clock. There's really very little reason to lose by 60 points unless you are just completely overmatched. And I don't think that was the case with Paducah Tillman, at least the Paducah Tillman that Calloway played. And that's something we're looking at. I think that they're probably better than what they've shown at different points during the year. But you know what? 18-3 for these Lady Lakers. I don't care if you do that against, little Laker basketball, little dribblers. It doesn't matter. To win 18 games and only lose 3 is really impressive, and is a testament to the progress they've gotten together on that one. Switching over to the guys' side for the Lakers, what are we seeing from these guys that's so successful? They're having a good year in their own right. They've won some games that I probably would have called them toss-ups looking at the schedule early on. They've really developed in a lot of ways that I'm kind of impressed with. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Calloway boys, Terry has put it this way. He says, we don't have any complete players. The players they have that can score aren't really good defenders.
Right.
The players they have that are good defenders struggle to score the ball.
Right.
So, they have some difficulties. They have been able to compensate for that in various ways. And, last week they almost got a victory at McCracken County. They got within 3 points twice in the final minute of that game after trailing by 19. They did beat Lexington, okay?
That's that's one of those games you write on your schedule. You just don't know exactly what you're going to bring with those. Playing a team from out of state is tough because you just don't know what you got. You just don't know.
That's right, and that was a talented basketball team that they played. Team that played really hard, and not just a team that played hard, but they were well coached. They were fundamentally sound, and so that was a good victory that the Lakers had in that game. Now they've gotten good play from a variety of players. Peyton Johnson has been effective for them, as has Camden Price, and those two have been their leading scorers on a rather consistent basis. So now in their last game, though, they came away with a 71-61 loss to West Creek on Saturday, and that game just kind of got away from them. They get Massac tonight.
Yeah.
And then their next game is against Caldwell County on the 28th. And
I don't know what Massac looks at. Caldwell County should be a game that they can win. It's going to be a challenge. They're generally a pretty talented team, Caldwell County is, but they graduated a lot of their size and a lot of their athleticism. So it's one of those questions that, what does Caldwell have? But Massac, to me, is a big question mark. They've played some games against some regional teams, and they've had mixed success, and you just don't know what you're going to get from them. But you really you have to like the Lakers' chances if they can ever put it all together. The talent's there, the skill's there. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
Yeah, and that obviously it's what they're going to have to do, and they'll have to find some balance one way or another.
Right.
Anything else on sports?
The Murray Lady Tigers are heading to All A against Danville. They're top 5 in the state. I really think that they've got to be one of the favorites for the All A state championship this year. So we'll see how they do. I look forward to seeing how they do it. Their first game is, I think, early in the morning at 8:30 Eastern time game, which is a 7:30 Central time start. That could be challenging, and Danville's not bad, but you would expect the Murray Tigers, the ladies will be able to handle that and kind of progress and move on from that game.
Don't really know anything about Danville, so.
Me neither. It's more along the lines of I know how good Murray High is.
Yeah.
The Lady Tigers are.
What do you
legit.
think of the All A just as a thing?
I think it's fine. It allows you to do a couple things that are really important to Kentucky high school basketball. Very, very few states nowadays have a non-classified basketball tournament. Kentucky's one of those states. Murray will go and they'll play against Henry Clay out of Lexington, or they'll go and play against Male or Trinity, and these are some of the largest schools in the state of Kentucky. But in the Sweet 16, you have a chance to play those teams. You have teams coming out of far eastern Kentucky where the school might only have 100 boys, and the basketball team is made up of 3 brothers and 2 cousins. These things do happen, and so it allows you the ability to have a Cinderella story, which is something that I think everybody wants. Whereas you get those teams, the Hoosiers, the Cuba Cubs in Kentucky, or some of those other teams that have done that. The small teams that come out of nowhere to capture the hearts and minds of the Commonwealth, and so you have that ability. But you look at those single A teams, and they definitely have a different pool to draw from. They're playing at a different level than a lot of the teams of their size, or even in their district and regions. I mean, you look at what Murray does year in and year out. They're competitive in a lot of sports in the unclassified basketball because you look at them. They're a 2A football school going up against Marshall County. Marshall County is much larger. They're 5A. Calloway's 4A. You have that ability. So I tend to like it as long as it's not disruptive to the kids. I think it's a positive, and I think it's generally a good thing. And quite frankly, anytime you can put together a tournament like that, that just makes things a little bit more fun, especially for those small schools. You got a chance to play against a school your size and kind of see what you're up against.
I was able to find the Cantrell ratings, and Danville has a rating of 70 in the Cantrell ratings. Murray would be a favorite of more than 20 points against them in that first game.
That's about right for a first-round game in the All-A's. But, again, there are some things that work against you. It's whoever shows up. It's a tournament, so it's difficult. I look for Murray High to win that one. One other thing of note before we sign off, Murray State football coming up on signing day is making some serious news with some of these guys. Recently added a transfer out of the University of Georgia, former Nashville High School product, Rico McGraw, who was a U.S. Army All-American, one of the top players in the state, one of the top players in the country, transferring from Georgia to Murray State. You got to have those guys. You're at the FBS level. You got to recruit high school guys and develop them, but you've got to bring in those FC or the FBS transfers as much as you can to fill in gaps. They just make things easier on you. You bring guys who've got a lot of coaching and a lot of talent, and if you can bring them in and assimilate them, you can be good. So big things on the horizon for Murray State football too.
And I think this season's going to be a pivotal year for Mitch Stewart and the football team because he had 40 some odd, I think 48, I may misremember, maybe 47 freshmen on this past year's team. They managed to win 4 games. With all of those guys being sophomores this coming year and with the talent that he has coming in, they should take a step forward. I think it wouldn't be reasonable to expect at least 6 or 7 victories.
I think
this coming season.
The big question in my mind, looking at the team now, just right now, before signing period, anything like that, the question to me is going to be quarterback. Replacing Katie Humphreys is going to be tough. Katie Humphreys is one of the best quarterbacks I'd ever seen from a skills-wise, overall ability level at Murray State that I've ever seen. He could run. He was very good in the pocket, had a good, strong arm, could read the field and make plays. And had pretty good accuracy even when moving, and that's really important. So who he replaces, who comes up and replaces Katie Humphreys is going to be really important to this team.
They have signed a couple of pretty impressive-looking quarterbacks.
Absolutely, a high school player out of Middle Tennessee that honestly looks pretty good.
His numbers are insane.
Yeah, his numbers are nuts, and Tennessee is pretty. It's a pretty good barometer.
No, it's a Class A.
That's the question. I mean, you never know what he's going to be playing against. Is he playing against teams that are having trouble fielding teams, or is he going up against some of the more talent-laden teams in Middle Tennessee? And that's a big question. But if Coach likes what he sees, and you got to trust that he's going to go out there and try to find a kid who can play. And then the transfer from
Old Dominion.
He's a Gatorade High School All-American, the Gatorade Player of the Year in South Carolina. You got to like what you see out of that. I mean, the talent's there. He was coached by his father, so he's a coach's son, which is generally a positive thing. If you can have somebody like that, those are the guys that can be really positive going forward. So it's a wide open field, but the talent's there. I'm interested to see how it shapes up going forward into the summer and spring, and see how we can make things happen.
And that brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine. I'm going to need Coke.